Hello and welcome back to Learn Energy Healing. Today I thought I would talk about what we are actually healing in the aura. I know how people's minds work and what they like, and that's why I decided to start more with techniques so that you can experience things for yourself and get stuck in. But it can be very, very useful to know what you are doing, what you are working on, why. Not only for your own benefit, so that you can reassure yourself of what's going on, but also so that you can talk to whoever you are working on. Explain to them what you are doing, how it's changing, why it might not be changing straight away, why it might need a little bit longer, why you might need to work on something else first, etc., etc. Because let's face it, we all have egos, we all have minds that like to be satisfied. And if you can explain what you are doing with someone, how it's changing, why it's changing, then they are more likely to allow a healing to happen, because there are a lot of people out there who won't let something change in their energy field unless they understand it first, unless it makes sense to them. So they let down their guard a little bit more easily, allow change to happen easily. Not always the case, but very much so. That's the case for a lot of people. And of course, if they understand what you are working on, how it's changing, and why something may not change straight away, then they are more likely to come back for more sessions, and therefore you can be more successful in actually helping them heal. So let's briefly go into the aura. I've talked about the aura a little bit before. Basically, the aura has a lot of different models out there. So lots and lots of different viewpoints, lots of different perspectives and beliefs about what the aura is and how it's divided up. You can basically understand it as a human energy field. I use the term energy very loosely here because the scientific word or explanation for the energy is very different to how we tend to use the word energy as healers, as psychics, because there isn't really enough words to explain the spiritual realm. So we tend to use the word energy for anything that's outside of the physical, which is a good analogy anyway, because, scientists do say that everything is made of energy. So all the different particles and all the different atoms of this pillow, for example, and my physical body are made of energy from a scientific point of view. So it's quite a good word to use. So the aura, or the human energy field, whatever you would like to call it, is within your body, and it also extends beyond the physical boundaries of your body. And from my perspective, it's continuous. It doesn't end. From a lot of people's points of view, they say that there's a limit to the human energy field, a limit to the aura, which typically is the 7th density or the 7th layer in most models out there. And then they say that beyond that 7th density is where it starts to merge with other people's auras, or the collective consciousness, if you like. But everything within the 7th, is pertaining to you. Lots of different arguments about that, lots of different perspectives, but that's generally the idea. And, as humans, we do like to divide it up into different densities, different layers, but really the human energy field is continuous. There isn't really one layer and then suddenly it's the next. It's not like that. All the different densities exist within the confines of the human body and also outside of it. It's just that the denser energies don't tend to exist further away from the physical body. That doesn't mean to say that the lighter, higher energies don't exist here, because they do too. So it's a continuous field that we have labelled and put markers in because that's what we do as humans. So always bear that in mind with the models of the aura. They are just that, models. And those labels we give to the different densities can help in explanation, can help in understanding it, helping our mind grapple it, if you like, so that it's easier to understand for ourselves and easier to explain for others. But don't forget that it is really just a continuous field. So, in that human energy field, in that aura, obviously we have all sorts of different energies that are constantly changing. It's not fixed, as a lot of people think. It's constantly changing according to what you are thinking, what you are feeling, what you are doing, what you are tapping into. And if we habitually think a certain way, have the same thought over and over again each day, have the same sorts of emotional reactions to the same situations over and over and over, then we tend to have certain vibrations in our aura, in our human energy field, more than other vibrations. And if those vibrations are not harmonious with life and love and growth, and not harmonious with our physical body, then they can negatively affect our mental, emotional state and our physical body as well. So let's give you an example. So for example, if you hold on to a belief of the world, for example, a belief that if someone judges you, it's wrong or bad, and therefore in life, whenever you get judged by someone else, you react to it, respond to it in a certain way because you've judged it as wrong or bad. Therefore, you have a negative emotion, maybe anger, maybe sadness. And also you have thoughts that reflect that too, such as that person's wrong for judging me that way, or that's not me, that judgment is wrong. That energy, if you continue to have those experiences based on that belief, and you keep resisting the energy coming at you from that other person, in other words, then that slows down the energy flow through your human energy field, slows down the energy through your aura, and so it becomes a lower vibration because it's slower moving energy. And so if you keep having experiences based on that belief, and it keeps building up in your aura, especially if it's a strong traumatic event, something that really shocked you, then that can really suddenly create quite a stagnant flow of energy in the body. What we call an energy block eventually, if it keeps building up and building up, or if you really do have a very strong reaction to something in your environment, a traumatic experience as we would call it, then you may suddenly develop a block in your energy field. And that block may be on one density or another of your aura. So if that block is more on the mental density, because it's more of a mental trauma, then you may have disruptive thoughts because the flow of mental energy isn't flowing through you so well, through your aura. And so you may have problems with focusing, problems with maintaining positive thoughts about a certain subject, and so on the mental plane. If that block manifests more on the emotional density, then you may have problems in terms of always feeling a certain emotion in response to certain things in your environment. You may have problems feeling certain emotions, especially in certain circumstances, and so on. So depending on where the block is, it can affect you more mentally, emotionally, or on any other layer of the spiritual realm. And of course, if a block is maintained in a certain density of your aura and is repeated, and you repeat over and over the same reactions to certain stimuli over and over again, and it gets stronger and stronger, it eventually filters into other densities of the aura as well, both up and down. So a block in the mental energy level can very much cause a block eventually in the emotional layer. And of course, because the physical body and the aura are reciprocally related, eventually, if you don't sort out that particular issue, you may end up starting to get physical issues in response to that. There's a lot of books out there that talk about how diseases are very much related to your mental and emotional state. And so there are lots of books out there that you can read and find that will list certain emotions, thoughts, and belief systems to certain diseases. And of course, it can happen the other way around. So if you have a physical injury, such as my collarbone here, I broke into 5 pieces from a mountain bike accident. So I had to have a couple of operations there to sort that out. So I've got a lot of scar tissue in my left collarbone. It has healed a lot over time through my energy healing and looking after my diet and so on and so on. But there's still scar tissue there. So I know that this is what we call an interference field, which we can talk about another time. But basically, an interference field in the physical body, a scarred area, if you like, an area where blood flow and lymphatic fluid flow, for example, doesn't happen so readily through this area because of the scar tissue. That impacts my aura as well. So I know that on my emotional, mental, and other densities of the aura, that the energy doesn't flow quite so well through this area. So because the physical body and the energetic body are reciprocally related, you can work from both angles. I do talk a lot about diet, exercise, stretching, sleep, that kind of thing, so that you can help with the mental state, the emotional state, the astral state, and all the other parts of the aura. But it can work the other way around. We tend to be very careful, us healers, about saying that we can cure things because there are a lot of corporations and organizations out there that hate us saying that we can cure things. I won't mention particular diseases, but there have been many times in my healing journey and other people's healing journeys where they've managed to completely cure or reverse a disease state purely by working on the aura, working on the part of the aura that's related to the particular problem. So I know with my collarbone, it's so much better because of all the energy work I've put in on that particular area there. The scar literally has faded and is less and it's shrunk. So there are changes happening there. So hopefully that's enough for you to understand about how the physical body and the aura are reciprocally related, how that they are not really different densities of the aura, but we do label them so that you can understand better, the different parts of the aura you may be working on, and to explain that to others, and how working on the aura can very much help the physical and vice versa. So what would you feel then as a healer? What would you be sensing? So if you've been following the previous videos and been practicing some of the techniques, most of you are probably sensing stagnant energies in one way or another. So as I've explained, when you have a limiting belief, an emotional trauma, mental trauma, maybe an astral trauma, a spiritual experience that's been traumatic for you, you tend to resist the flow of energy. You tend to slow it down. And so the energy becomes more and more stagnant. And what you will find as a healer when you're passing your hand through the aura of an area that's been affected negatively, what you will find is it's harder to pass your hand through. It feels denser in some way. You may come up against something and it may be harder for your hand to pass through it. You may actually even feel so much resistance that it feels like an object. It feels like a hard object of some sort. Or if you're using more visual techniques, it may be hard for your mind to pass through a certain area. It may be very obvious that there's something very dense there in your mind's eye if you're using those techniques. So if it's something that's very mild, say that you've had a very mild reaction to something, nothing really serious, and that you've repeated it enough times to cause some resistance in your aura, so you are resisting an emotion that comes from certain people, for example, you might find that instead of your hand being free-flowing through that particular area of the aura where that emotion is, it will feel like it's a little bit more resistance than normal. And if there's a lot more resistance in that person to a particular emotion, then it may feel harder, even harder for your hand to pass through. Eventually it may feel thicker, more like water. And if there's really strong reaction, a really strong emotion in that particular area of the aura, it may feel quite sticky, sludgy, gooey. And eventually, if it's really a strong stagnant energy, it starts to feel quite rubbery and eventually even quite hard in the aura. So that's how an emotion could feel, but you could also feel the same for mental energy. Mental energy typically most people see as a lighter energy, but you can also feel the same with the mental energy too. And the astral energies and the etheric energies and all of the other energies in the aura, you can feel the same with those too, if it's something very, very strong. So yes, generally speaking, the more someone resists a particular energy flowing through their body, the more that energy starts to build up, the denser it becomes, the stickier, the more rubbery, the harder it becomes. So that can give you some indication of how strong a problem is. And of course, the stronger the problem, the more it affects the other densities of the aura. So you will feel it in multiple layers of the aura, multiple densities, and eventually, of course, it affects the physical body. So I'm talking a bit about densities here and layers of the aura. Please do go and look at different models of the aura to get some idea. And of course, using intention, which we talked about in earlier videos, you can intend to only feel a certain density of the aura. You can intend to only feel emotional energies. You can intend to only feel mental energies. You can intend to feel etheric template energies only, if you wish. But one thing I will say is you don't need to do that. You don't need to specify a certain density of the aura to feel. You don't need to even know the different densities of the aura. You don't need to know the names of them. If you simply intend to feel for what would be good to work on, you will find it. You don't need to specify anything. You don't need to know which density it is that you're working on necessarily. But if you do look at different models of the aura, and because a lot of people like to know about what's happening and what you're working on, then learning the different densities of the aura according to the model that suits you best can be very useful. Can be very useful for explaining things to people. So that's generally what most people are going to feel if you've been following my lessons so far. Mostly that's what you're going to sense, a sense of the energy not flowing as well in some way or another. With something feeling very solid, if it's something really restrictive, something really traumatic, and then more and more and more towards, goo, and then liquid, and then gassy, and then very free-flowing as it gets towards something that's less of a problem. I will do a separate video on the astral and talk about objects you might find in the aura, things you might find in the aura, beings even you might find in the aura. So I will do that in a separate video because the astral is a very misunderstood subject. So I will put that in a separate video. and keep this video quite basic for the time being. Okay. Please do like and subscribe if you find these videos useful to you, and if you would like to support this channel, of course. It does help me if you do like and subscribe and recommend this to other people. The more people who understand healing, the better, as far as I'm concerned. So please do click on the like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.